I did something wrong? Oh, I know what I did wrong.
And I'm admitting the rest of the participants.
Everybody.
Okay, are we recording, Amy?
We are.
All right, I'd like to call this special meeting of the City Commission to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
A flag.
I pledge allegiance
I pledge
to the
allegiance
flag
to the
The
flag
flag, the United
of the
States
United
of
States
America,
of America,
to the republic,
To the
which
republic.
stands
which
one
stands
nation, under
one
God,
nation, under God,
indivisible.
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Roselle,
Present.
Commissioner Olsman,
Present.
Commissioner Jenks.
Jeff has to take his mute off.
Commissioner Jenks, you're on mute.
Muted.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Elder, you're also muted.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Paul, present. Approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Seconded.
And Mayor, remember, we need a roll call vote on all these.
Okay. Roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem Roselle,
Aye.
Commissioner Elder,
Aye.
Commissioner Jenks,
Aye.
Commissioner Olsman,
Aye.
Mayor Paul, aye. So we have one item in front of us today, and because this is a special commission meeting, it is the only item that we can discuss. Just to give you a little background on it, this is the enforcement hearing. It's being conducted in accordance with the City Code, Chapter 6, Article 7, Dangerous Buildings. On January 3rd of 2020, Mr. Brainard was served with a dangerous building show cause notice and notice of hearing by both regular and certified mail, scheduling the hearing to consider whether the garage at 10425 Elgin was a dangerous structure. The hearing was scheduled to take place before hearing officer Julie Felix on January 22nd, 2020. Prior to the hearing date, Mr. Brainard submitted an objection and answer to the show cause hearing. Mr. Brainard's objections and answer were submitted into the record before the hearing officer. Following the hearing officer issued her findings and order dated January 28th, 2020, finding the garage to be a dangerous structure. The findings and order were served on Mr. Brainard on February 6th, 2020. Pursuant to the findings and order, Mr. Brainard was given a period of 90 days to remedy the dangerous building conditions. The city extended this period of time while the governor's orders preventing construction were in place. In the interim, Mr. Brainard served the city with a cease and desist, alleging that the city could not proceed in accordance with the city code. Today, Mr. Brainard forwarded further objections to the city's attempt to enforce the dangerous building code, which have been received by the City Commission. This matter is now before the Commission under Section 6-187 of the code. The Commission may affirm, reverse, or modify the findings and order. We will begin with a presentation by the city's zoning administrator outlining the condition of the structure. Then we will be followed by an opportunity for the City Commission to ask any questions they might have of the hearing officer. Mr. Brainard will then present his opposition to the demolition of the garage. Lastly, the public will be given an opportunity for comment, but the public should confine any comments to the sole issue of whether the city commission should affirm, reverse, or modify the findings and order. So let me start by turning this over to Hank Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, this has been going on since 2010. We've been serving Mr. Brainerd with notifications, notices, actual certified letters, regular mail letters, postings on the property. The garage has been in a state of disrepair for a long time and first came to my attention after neighbors had complained about it, and I looked at it when I was supervising the lawn cutting, which was a regular thing that the city had to undertake, as Mr. Brainerd didn't make provisions for that. So when I noticed that, I, based on what I could discern from the garage, I applied for a warrant for a search warrant, which was granted by the 45B District Court. At that point in time, we did go with a structural engineer to assess the report, or to assess and report the constructional condition of the garage. You've been provided with photos of the garage from many different angles, inside and out, and also the structural engineer's report from Shepherd Engineering. At that point in time, we determined that there was an awful lot that was going on with the garage. If you pay a particular attention in the photos to the corners of the garage, you can see the structural members and the trim board separating, which shows that the garage is in fact moving and has moved. As a result, we pursued this with a dangerous building because it was tending to lean towards neighboring properties. The neighbors were concerned about it, as were we. So what we did was that we proceeded with a hearing after being unsuccessful to get Mr. Brainerd to fix this in any way, shape, or form. And it became where we are today. One of the issues that we had was that Mr. Brainerd, give me just a quick second here to go through this, because I think it's particularly relevant, is Mr. Brainerd's objection. He does have a right to object, and we would encourage him certainly to do so. It would have been nice had he done so before this stage, but he chose not to. Basically what he's done is he's gone through and given a list of items that he has said are not true or are not relevant or are not, that don't pertain to the case. I would like to answer those on the record since he directly asks of me some of the things. So what I would do is that I had a sworn affidavit that was submitted to Julie Felix as part of the presentation to that. During the course of the hearing, she received this. We talked about it. Everything had an opportunity to discuss. Mr. Brainerd chose not to be here, nor to have a representative attend. So basically, Mr. Brainerd labeled all his items, and he said that a lot of them were informational, and they are informational in a lot of cases. Part of that is helping us build the record so that we have a clear understanding of what has transpired on this property over the course of years. This first again came to light in 2010 after the Brainards moved and left the house, vacated the house, and all of them moved to Montana to be with Mr. William Brainerd, you know, who is the executor or is the trustee for this. So basically what he said was that that a lot of the stuff that was irrelevant was the maintenance and things like that, and when the bills were paid in that. The reason that I brought it up, and the reason that it was part of my affidavit was that it goes to the past practice of not maintaining the property, and also the responsibilities that go with the property, the general maintenance, the bills, paying the bills on time, paying the taxes. While that doesn't create a dangerous building, it does create a pattern. And that pattern comes into question when Mr. Brainerd starts to assert the fact that we didn't do this and we didn't do many other things. He labeled and he said that basically I had no knowledge of this property and that I was not qualified to speak to it as I don't know the property well. I did want to point out that he would be incorrect in his assumption is that I'm uninformed, because I did live on Elgin and my parents did as well. Actually 6 houses from this property. So I do know the property very, very well. And I've known it for many years. My mom still lives there and I visit many times a week. So I travel by the property quite frequently. Mr. Brainerd also asserts that he was there on several occasions for many, many days at a time. I've also included the water records for the Brainerd house, which indicate that if somebody had lived there, if somebody was staying there, nobody had flushed a toilet, taken a shower, or ran a dishwasher, based on the fact that there's little to no water usage except for one brief period of time. So that would indicate that that's not exactly correct and be contrary to Mr. Brainerd's claim. He objects to the name being listed as a trustee and says it's not relevant who is the trustee, but it is clearly relevant as it actually identifies the responsible party. Also, he complained about when items were listed and when and things were paid. It does go to a question again, establishing the responsibility on the part of the owner to take care of the property and its obligations. Mr. Brainerd's items in label G. This item again is not informational as it provides proof that Mr. Brainerd received communications on the city on several occasions, yet chose not to respond. The items listed in Mr. Brainerd's label H. While Mr. Brainerd may not like my reference to cutting the lawn and payment, it clearly helps establish again that he has no care plan for this residence. And the items listed in Mr. Brainerd's label I. Mr. Brainerd said he never received a copy of the evaluation, which would be incorrect. That would be the engineer's report. To that end, he was mailed a copy when the report was done. A copy of the warrant was posted on the Elgin property, and he has had ample time to correct it via demolition or repair, yet he's done neither. Additionally, if, as Mr. Brainerd claims, he was here on a regular basis, why did he never contact us? If there were documents posted at his house and he would see those, the first move would be, assumedly, to call City Hall and find out what's going on. And then the second thing about that is that clearly he had a copy at a minimum, or he at a minimum wouldn't be addressing it here. So he has had copies of this. And he said that he never got any notices or communications from the city. If that's the case, how could I possibly be burying him in paperwork, as he stated in his response, item number O? Items listed in Mr. Brainerd's label J. Mr. Brainerd asserts that the garage can still be plumb and level, even though the overhang is flawed. This may be true to an extent, but unfortunately this is not the case here. Shepard's report says on page 2, the deflection is so extensive that the overhead door hits the motion sensor floodlight, which is attached to the soffit of the cantilevered gable roof, and is leaning slightly to the west. Items listed in Mr. Brainerd's label K. Mr. Brainerd has been receiving notices on his garage since 2010. He can deny it all he wishes, but I've supplied you with a copy signed by Mr. Brainerd himself. So item listed in Mr. Brainerd's label L. He said that it was not a shock that the car was in the garage because that's where they're supposed to be. And this, as he articulates, I've never met Mr. Brainerd to my knowledge, and all of this stems from a desire to have the property that has been the subject of numerous complaints by neighbors over the years corrected. To suggest that I have an agenda, my agenda would be specifically that Mr. Brainerd follow the code and maintain his property in a manner consistent with the city code and the International Property Maintenance Code. The items that were listed in Mr. Brainerd's label M. Again, this goes to standard maintenance practices which have not been addressed over the years. On his label N, this shows the lengths we had to go to gain response. Additionally, the warrant, which was lawfully signed by a presiding judge, was obtained in part upon resident complaints. So this is not something where the city is after Mr. Brainerd. This is something where the city just simply wants compliance, as do the residents that have to look at this. The item listed in Mr. Brainerd's statement P. My statement does start with the phrase, in my opinion. To that end, it was never purported to be anything more than an educated opinion. In the areas of construction, I do have an extensive background. but at least I have physically observed the conditions that exist at that particular garage, which Mr. Brainerd has declined to do. And in items listed in label Q, Mr. Brainerd is and always has been free to hire a contractor to do the remediation. I wasn't sure what he was asking there, but to be clear, Mr. Brainerd may be the homeowner, but he is not the resident here, and this is not his primary residence. As such, he doesn't live in this house, so a homeowner's permit would do him no good. He would have to hire a licensed Michigan contractor to begin with, which is something Mr. Brainerd has not done. He simply has not done that. So items listed in Mr. Brainerd's label are, again, this is relevant to the long list of items that need attention that Mr. Brainerd has neglected to address, and such goes to the pattern of failing to respond. S, provides assurance that the proper entity is being served. And the question for there was, why do you need the trustee? Why is the trustee on this? Because he's the legally responsible person for this, and that's been demonstrated. We've gone through the city attorney. This has been through the courts on several different occasions. We regularly get permission from the courts to do cleanups there every year because Mr. Brainerd does not take care of the property. And to summarize, all the city ever wanted was compliance, and to maintain the property as prescribed by the International Property Maintenance Code, as well as the city code. We do not gain anything by going this route. And in fact, it is always preferable not to have to. Mr. Brainerd has made the conscious decision to avoid compliance. So as a result, here we are. This is not about Mr. Berry versus Mr. Brainerd, but rather the enforcement of the simple responsibility of compliance with the codes and being a good neighbor. With that said, I would be happy to answer any questions that the commission has. If Mr. Brainerd is on, I'd also be happy to answer any questions that he has.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. This is Jeffrey Brainerd. You say that Mr. Brainerd, who is in question in this proceeding, that it's not myself, does not have the ability to draw a permit as a homeowner. And I'm not objecting to that. However, I am in receipt of communication where I believe in the document that you're quoting with all of the alphabetical subpoints, that Mr. Brainerd very specifically asks you what permits are required. Can you provide documentation to that reply?
There's a building permit. All he needs is a building permit.
If I can intervene,
Mr. Berry,
Mr. Brainerd, Mr. Brainerd.
Yes, who is yes, I hear you. Who is this?
This is the city attorney. Okay, we're
Thank
here on
you.
no cause, and we're supposed to be addressing the issue of whether or not the building is dangerous. The city is under no obligation to advise Mr. Brainerd what permits are required. Okay, so that's not on point to what's before us.
Okay, before we proceed with more questions from Mr. Bernard, we do have the hearing officer with us on this meeting, Julie Fielek, and if the commission has any questions about her ruling, this is the time for that. Do we have any questions from the city commission?
Is there anything more that you would add other than what I mean, I read the findings. Is there anything additional that I don't know that you really can. You made your findings in your report, and your findings speak for themselves. Is that correct?
My job is really to review the information that the city provided and review the information that Mr. Brainerd provided. I'm a neutral party. I'm from Livingston County. When I came into the hearing, that was the first time I've ever been to the city of Huntington Woods. And so it's my job to impartially assess each side's information and based on the ordinances and the information that I have to come up with a series of findings. So if you all have my findings, you'll see a complete list of the information that is provided by the city. Also, the information is provided by Mr. Brainerd, and I think I correctly stated several items in my findings that he had agreed to do even prior to the hearing. And one of the last things is I did require, since he is not a homeowner, he's not a resident homeowner, that he would be required to have the work done by a licensed Michigan contractor under a proper building permit as determined by the city. And it's to be subject to all the required inspections. So I think the city provided me with very complete information, including the engineering reports and many, many photographs. And I tried to also present Mr. Brainerd's side of the story and what he was willing to do, which actually was quite a bit. I mean, he stated several times that he, you know, his intention was to address the dangerous parts of the building, and that, you know, he intends to fix it up and sell it when the economy gets better. And he didn't really seem to be having too many issues with the things that we've requested him to do. So I think that's, I really can't add anything else.
So, Ms. Feelick, the city of Huntington Woods provided you with an engineer's report, and I have read that report extensively. Mind you, I am not representing my father here. However, did that engineer at any point in the analysis indicate that the structure was in fact dangerous?
It wasn't his job really to do that. His job was to go in, assess the property, make a structural analysis of the garage and building. It's really the city's responsibility to decide, and my responsibility, based on what he pointed out in his report and the pictures that were provided to me. That was our responsibility. And he pointed out several things, which I've listed very clearly on the items that need to be repaired. Though several of those are very serious violations. That garage, you know, it could fall down next week. It could fall down in a year and a half, but it's going to go.
No, in honesty, if that is not repaired within the next 2 weeks or 30 days or something like that, do you honestly think that it is going to fall down?
That's not my opinion to tell you. My job.
Okay.
And Mr. Brainerd, that isn't the question.
Please identify yourself.
This
Wait a
is a
minute.
city, this is a
Hold on,
city.
Carol, hold
Yeah.
on. Brainerd, who are you? Are you the son of the trustee? Is that who
I've
you are?
identified myself already.
Well,
Yeah.
here's the problem.
Hold on. I'm asking you to identify yourself. I want to know who you are and what your relationship is to the party in interest, one Michael Brainerd, successor trustee. Can you answer it?
My name is Jeffrey Brainerd. If you were listening, you would know that that is my father because I indicated it less than 2 minutes ago.
Okay, but here's my question. Are you here representing your father?
Did I answer that question already? I believe
No,
I made that statement.
No, you didn't. Are you here
Oh, I
representing your father?
did.
It's a procedural
did.
thing, Jeff, that they're looking at because you're
No, I get this.
the public.
Dad,
Look at, if you're representing your father, if you're here as his representative, you can ask these questions. If you're not, you're here simply as a member of the general public, and it's not time for you to ask questions or comment. So please let us know
Ms.
whether you're
Rosati.
here on behalf of your father or not.
Ms. Rosati, I answered that question already when I addressed Ms. Feelick earlier. You may look at the record.
Okay, well, according to what I heard, you said you were not here on behalf of your father. And that being the case, you could not ask any questions, and you can only participate in public participation at the end. So do you want to change your response or not?
Why don't we redirect this to the parties involved?
I'm the attorney
I have
for
my
the city.
I don't care. I do
Okay.
have a definite opinion of what's going on here. I am
Okay,
not
you
going
can
to
express
act
your
on that.
opinion then during public participation.
Mr. Mayor, I frankly, this is very unproductive. I'm not sure what this gentleman's problem is following basic questions and respecting the commission's role here. So I'm going to ask that he be treated as a member of the public, since that's certainly what he's acting like, and we move on with the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, I would agree with that. And At this point, I'm going to move on and ask for a motion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Don't I get some input? This is Michael Brainerd. Don't I get some input here?
Oh, it says Patrick Flaherty.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you were
One of my attorneys that I have.
Oh, you're Michael Brainerd?
Yes,
Okay, that's not the name showing up. Yes, you clearly have a right to present your position now. Go ahead.
I'm in my attorney's office
Okay.
right now because I'm looking for less aggravation. I'm looking for us to come to a way to solve this without battling it out in court, which I do not object to. I have been there with the federal government and beaten them. I'm not a novice, but I'm looking only to try to get things reasonable. When I was asking the city what kind of permits are needed, if I go in there and I scrape paint and paint, do I need a permit? If I go in there and fix something on the garage, do I need a permit? No one has told me that, and I've asked it repeatedly. And then you look at the engineer's report, and he says that he wants certain things done. He is not the city, and the city has not said exactly. They can read his report, and they may agree or disagree with all of it or portions of it. The place was built with a permit and approved by the city of Huntington Woods in 1949. So if you look at the roof 2x4s, they were legal and approved at the time the building was built, and they still should be grandfathered in, and he does not say it will cave in. If I recall right, in the last couple of months, you had a heavy snowstorm. The building did not fall down. If you put a level on the corners, it's real level. When they build a house, it is not exactly level. There's a variance. That is reinforced. It's not going to fall down. Now, I have no problem with having someone do different things to the building, and I have the names of 3 different contractors that I've been talking to, and if this COVID thing had not come up, I would have been there already. Now, I never got the engineer's report, Carol, until you sent it to me in February, which is how many months after it was done? It was done in September. That was the first time I saw the report. I don't know where all this other stuff is going on, but I thank you for having a complete set of everything when you sent it to me. And that's when I started replying to you. I'm looking for just a delay from now for 90 days to bring the garage into compliance and avoid everything else. And if I can't do it in that time, I'll fold and have it tore down. I don't have a problem with that. That isn't the issue as far as I'm concerned. I'm just looking for a reasonable solution. Your engineer says in his, it is possible to remediate this simply framed garage to comply with the code requirements. And that's what I want to do. And he doesn't say it's dangerous. He does not say it's going to fall down. And he talks about future roof loads. He's not talking about now. He talks about anticipated future roof loads. He's an engineer. He's very specifically, things have changed since 1949 to 2020. In that time span, code has changed. And I don't have a problem with reinforcing the roof or painting, things like that. I don't have a problem with that. And really, truly, rather than argue and battle and carry it out, I just want a time so that I can take care of and remediate any problems with the garage. If this COVID thing had not come up, I'd have been there. Where I am, there's 20 people died in the whole state, and Michigan's got over 5,000. I wasn't real eager to come there with that. And the president and the governor said, stay at home, don't come. And there's been some time lapses between your people making reports and assuming that I got them, because I didn't. I got a bill for the engineer's report, but I never got a copy until you sent me one, Carol. I mean, I don't want to argue about this stuff. The engineer says it can be fixed easily. That's what I want to do, and I just want the time period to do it. I'm trying to be fairly reasonable without, I don't want to argue about it, carry on, this point, that point. That's not very productive, I don't think. It just,
Mr. Brainerd, I agree with you. This is not very productive. I have two questions for you. Can you please
Sure.
help me understand? I understand there were multiple attempts by the city to contact you to discuss this prior to this meeting. Please comment on that. And secondly, what are your intentions of this residence?
okay. The city sent me certified letters. When I'm not in Montana, I can't accept a certified letter. I didn't get a certified letter for this meeting. I got a couple of emails, and I read my emails, and that's why I'm here. When you send me a certified and I'm not in Montana, it sits at the post office and goes back to you. That isn't me rejecting you or refusing or anything like that. What I want to do with the property is repair, fix it up. And I've been talking to two different people that want to buy the property, and I want a family to move into there. I'm not
Mr. Mayor,
grief.
I guess I'm trying to understand here. So there was a hearing held by a hearing officer that reviewed a number of documents, one of which was the engineering report. And this hearing officer determined that you had 90 days to do a number of things that were listed in the order. And there are a total of 9 things. So during those 90 days, did you make any efforts to obtain a licensed Michigan contractor to obtain, or I'm sorry, to address any of the 9 items that are listed in the order?
I have contacted 2 of the 3 contractors. The third one didn't answer back. The code person that held the hearing did not reflect the engineer's report. Julie inserted her experience looking at pictures about the property. She said she looked at the pictures. The engineer's report says roof rafters need to be reinforced. Look at it here. 3 The man door wall needs a different header over the top of it. And the front needs to be redone to where it's supported properly. From the engineer's report, those are the three things. The door framing is peanuts. That's a couple hours work. Putting the doubling of the rafters up is less than a day's work. Redoing the front is a little more extensive, and I don't know how long that will take. I believe the place needs to be painted, fixed up so it looks nice, because I want the property to sell at a reasonable price. I'm not looking for sky high anything. I'm actually would like to find a family that wants to move in rather than somebody to flip it.
Okay, Mr. Bernard,
Enough questions?
yeah, from my understanding, if the city commission affirms the decision here, that will start the clock again, giving you 60 days to complete what is being asked, which would mean in that period of time, if a permit is pulled and you start work, you're asking for 90, but you can't do all that on day 89. And I would assume, Mr. Barry, you can answer this question for me. If in that 60 days, Mr. Brainard has pulled a permit and work is starting, that we are going to be okay with giving him the 90 days he's asking for to finish all the repairs. Is that true?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, all we ever wanted was compliance with this. I mean, the neighbors have a lot of concerns. And realistically, if Mr. Brainerd was willing to do that, there would be no problem with that. A permit is a matter of what has to happen for the permit is that we will need some plans detailing what he intends to do. We will need a application for a permit by a licensed Michigan contractor, and they'll have to provide identifications or license, proof of insurance, and the typical things that they are registered if they're not already with the city. A building permit for something like this would flip around really quick, and he could have a permit likely within less than a week, as long as the documentation stands up for a building official. Having said that, once the carpenter or whoever he chose to do the work began on it right away, realistically, if he chose the option to repair the garage, which is his prerogative, he could do so with the carpentry crew and be completed within 60 days easily. So having said that, if he was underway and it was day 59 and he was there was substantive progress made, it would not be in the city's best interest to stop him at that point in time.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a couple of questions?
Certainly.
Okay. Mr. Brainerd, are you a resident of Great Falls, Montana? Is that where you live?
That's where I live, yes.
Okay. The lawyer, you say that we see his name, Mr. Flaherty, or is it?
Yes.
Flaherty. Is he there with you for this hearing tonight?
He is there with me, yes.
So is he representing you? Hi there.
Hey, no, Mike is a friend. He's a common sense builder. I'm not admitted in your fair city. You look like a nice all-American council, working hard.
I don't know what that means, but.
but I don't, yeah, I'm legally, I can't practice there, but I've got Skype, and I told Mike that you can use Skype.
Well, I just, usually if somebody has counsel, they let their lawyer do his or her talking. That's why I wasn't sure what the role was here, but that's okay. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Brainerd, let me ask you a couple other questions. You, when's the last time you physically went into the premises on Elgin?
Last year in May.
And how, did you stay there for any extended period of time?
I stayed there for over a week, and I bought a membership over at the YMCA so I could work out and shower and shave. And not being a great cook, I eat out.
Well,
so I didn't use water at the residence.
At all? You didn't even use the bathroom?
I probably flushed the toilet. I don't know. I seem to think we must have used some water. I didn't know I was under
I have some
any
other questions for, I
obligation.
have some other questions for you. Your counsel advises you're a builder?
Yes,
Okay. And so you understand you have neighbors at this residence on Elgin, correct?
I have spoken to the neighbor that has been making the complaints, and he told me that my house is dropping his value and he doesn't like it and he wants me to fix it up. And
Do you agree with that? That the exterior appearance of the house is
needs
not
improvement, yes.
substantial improvement, correct?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Who's mowing the lawn at the house these days? Do you know?
Well, I've contacted a couple of lawn services, and Randy Travis told me today that somebody's been over there cutting it.
Yeah, the city of Huntington Woods is cutting it. That's
Well,
who's cutting it.
Randy cut it 2 days before your guys were going to show up. So if
Let me
you're
ask-
cutting it right after he cuts it, that's not productive.
Am I correct, Ms. Rosati, that there was a prior court hearing or there was some sort of court proceeding in front of Judge Gable in the 45B District Court?
Probably Mr. Berry can give more information on that. Are you talking about the last year
Last year or at any time
with
prior?
the mowing and all that? Hank, can you address that?
Yeah, there were times that at the beginning or end of the year that we would go to court and obtain a court order, which would allow us to do more than just the lawn cutting. Our code and ordinances allow us right now to go ahead and cut the lawn, provided that it exceeds 6 inches. So typically around this time of the year, every week it gets a cut. As it gets towards August or it gets later in the year, when that all dies down and the grass doesn't grow as fast, it's not necessary to do that, so we don't. Basically, if it's not 6 inches when the guys go out there and it's the Park Service that cuts it, we don't cut it. It has to be 6 inches or greater for us to cut it at all.
Mr. Brainerd, were you aware of these prior proceedings in the 45B District Court in Oak Park?
No, because although you guys know where I live and can send me certified letters, email me, or call me, instead of doing that, they posted something on the door knowing that there's no way in hell I can see it. So how can I respond when I
You're
can't?
telling me nothing was mailed to your address on
Correct.
Avenue North in Great Falls?
There have been over the years, and I can't tell you exactly which, where, what, occasional communications, and not, the city is indicating that there's been a lot of communication from them to me, and there has not. When they send me certified letters and I'm not here to take them, that communication doesn't happen.
When you say you're not there to take them, you mean you don't live at the residence in Great Falls?
No, I mean, I was doing volunteer missionary work in South America, in Ecuador. That's
So
what I'm saying.
no one picked up your mail for you?
I'm the only one that can sign for certified to me.
Well, you understand that when in legal proceedings, posting is notice of last resort. Posting occurs when people don't respond to correspondence and don't respond to notice, okay?
Other than certified letters, I have not gotten a normal letter other than from Carol, who has sent me normal letters.
Well, you know why that is, Mr.
And I have responded to her.
Well, you know, when you say
in
a
normal
letter, you mean through the mail without certification. That just means that if we said we sent you a letter, you'd say, well, I never got that. And the purpose of certified mail is to assure that the person who is the sendee of the letter, in fact, received it, because they have to sign for it. That's why usually in legal proceedings, service of process and notifications and things like that require certification, because it assures the court that whatever notifications have been made have in fact been received. If you say, send me a normal letter, if you say send somebody a normal letter through like the US mail, I don't know about in Great Falls, Montana, but I can tell you that around here, I wouldn't count a lot on regular mail, because it's not, the services are not as what they used to be. I mean, I'm a lawyer and we use Federal Express for important documents. But I have some other questions for you. Is the property insured?
It was insured. It is not insured right this minute.
What would happen if there was a fire there, Mr. Brainerd?
Then I'm assuming that I would have to tear it down.
Mm-hmm. What impact do you think that a fire damaged structure would have on the houses, the contiguous homes to yours on Elgin?
The house is brick on the outside. It's far enough away from both of the neighbors. My neighbor on the one side is brick. I don't remember what the other one is. Huntington Woods has a very responsive fire department. I seriously doubt that it would get enormous out of control.
You know how many fires there were in Huntington Woods last year where the property was substantially damaged and they were houses like you're describing?
I don't know anything about any fires in Huntington Woods.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Brainerd. You've answered my questions.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, do you want me to proceed with the motion?
I would, thank you.
Okay.
Hang on 1 minute. Weren't we going to allow public participation on this, Mayor?
I will following the motion.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. For the record, motion, I am making a motion to affirm dangerous building findings and order. I move to affirm the findings and order of the hearing officer dated January 28th, 2020, based upon the information contained in the order. The information submitted by the city at the dangerous building hearing conducted on January 28th, 2020, and referenced in the order, the documentation, the affidavit submitted by the city zoning administrator at the dangerous building hearing, and the show cause hearing before this city commission based on the following. Number one, Mrs. Brainerd, I assume that's Kathleen Brainerd, died in approximately 2003. Since her death, the property has been vacant and unoccupied. Number two, the order of the hearing officer required the following action to be completed within 90 days from the date of the order, January 28, 2020. A, the 24-inch cantilevered gable at the front of the garage was not built properly and not supported with structural members, resulting in the front wall of the garage leaning slightly to the west and the cantilevered front gable sagging excessively. The cantilevered gable was to be completely removed. The gable roof was ordered to be rebuilt with a maximum overhang not to exceed 8 inches, but since the existing door header is not adequate to support the current roof load and the minimal 2x4 rafter framing does not provide adequate support for the reversed rafter framing. B, the items being stored in the rafters were to be removed immediately since the cantilevered gable framing is not structurally adequate to support the additional loads. C, the existing 2x4 roof rafters are approximately 24% overstressed. The existing rafters were required to be reinforced by installing 2x4 number 2 hemfer or better rafters along every existing rafter and connecting them together with 16D nails at 16-inch OC. D, at least 2 additional tension ties were required to be installed at the front of the garage to provide a minimum of ties at every other rafter location. The new ties were to be connected in accordance with the minimum code requirements for roof framing members, and additional fasteners must be added to the existing tension ties to meet the current code requirements. E, the racking of the front wall of the garage was to be remediated by jacking the front wall to a plumb condition and sheathing the interior side of the front wall on both sides of the overhead door opening. The sheathing should be connected to the existing walls with 8D common nails installed at 6-inch OC around the perimeter and 12-inch OC on the exterior of the sheets. F, the main, it says the man door, I assume that means the main door on the west wall was to be removed and the wall framing replaced. As an alternative, the door must be lowered to a double 2x6 header and must be installed to adequately support proposed roof loads above. G, the paint on the exterior walls was required to be sanded and painted to prevent long-term damage to the siding on all 4 garage walls. Prior to sanding and painting, the paint must be tested for lead, and if lead was found, it must be remediated as required. H, the existing garage roof shingles are extensively weathered and show signs of deterioration. If it is found by the city that they are allowing leaking into the garage, they were to be removed and replaced. I, all work must be done by a licensed Michigan contractor under a proper building permit as determined by the city and is subjected to all required inspections by the city of Huntington Woods. Number 3, at the time of the Stay Home Safe executive order was issued by Governor Whitmer, Mr. Brainerd had not taken any action to obtain the required permits and has not performed any of the remediation required. Number 4, the city as an accommodation extended the 90-day repair requirement for the period of time that Mr. Brainerd could not work until an executive order opened construction activities. 5, despite this extension, Mr. Brainerd has failed to obtain any building permits or taken any action to remedy the dangerous building conditions. Number 6, the order further provided that if the work was not performed as required, the city could enter upon the property and demolish the garage and remove and dispose all of the items contained in the garage, including the unlicensed vehicle. All of the costs involved in the demolition and removal of the items, including reasonable consultant and attorney fees. If the costs were not paid by Mr. Brainerd within 30 days, all costs would be placed on the tax rolls of the property and collected in the same manner as all taxes assessed against the property. Number 7, Mr. Brainerd has wrongfully asserted that the city lacks the legal authority to enter on the property because the garage is not dangerous and the city must obtain a court order. The issue of whether the garage is dangerous has already been determined by the hearing officer, and Mr. Brainerd has had ample opportunity to make the required repairs. Further, under the law, the city can proceed with the demolition. Number 8, the issues with the deterioration of the Elgin property have been going on for years, and the property has become an eyesore for the neighboring residents. The garage has a pronounced lien, and collapse is a real possibility. G, therefore, I move to confirm the findings and order of the hearing officer dated January 28, 2020, in the ruling that the garage located at 10425 Elgin, Huntington, constitutes a dangerous building as defined in the housing law of Michigan, Public Act 1971, number 167, MCL 125539, parent small a, parent small c, parent small e, and parent small f, and the corresponding sections under the city's dangerous building ordinance. Chapter 6 of the Code of Ordinances, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 7, Dangerous Buildings. Mr. Brainerd shall have 60 days from the date of this order to fully comply with the findings and order of the hearing officer dated January 28, 2020. In the event Mr. Brainerd fails or refuses to comply with this motion within 60 days, the city will contract for the demolition of the garage and remove and dispose of all the items contained in the garage, including the unlicensed vehicle. The city will invoice Mr. Brainerd for all costs, including attorney fees, incurred in the demolition and removal and disposal of the items in the garage. All of the costs and attorney fees shall be reimbursed to the city within 30 days by Mr. Brainerd or any other party in interest in whose name the property appears from the last local tax assessment records. Notice of the costs will be provided by first-class mail at the address on the city records. If Mr. Brainerd fails to pay the invoice within 30 days of mailing, all such costs and attorney fees shall be placed on the tax rolls for the property and collected in the same manner as all taxes against the property. A copy of this motion shall be recorded with the Oakland County Register of Deeds to notify any potential purchaser of the dangerous building conditions that exist. The signature line for Mayor Paul.
Second.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
Would this be the appropriate time to speak?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Brainerd we have not been in any contact with him, contrary to what was brought up in his testimony. And I'd also like to say thank you to Carol, Hank, and Amy have been doing a extremely good job in replying to my concerns, as well as maintaining the grass in the last couple months. So I want to acknowledge that and tell them all thank you very much. And all we're really looking for here is for pride and ownership in the great city of Huntington Woods. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Mr. Mayor, just a point of clarification, if I may.
Sure.
So he has 60 days from the time of this, of the commissioner's vote. And should he come in and get a permit, and should that be underway, then it's the commission's preference to, as long as substantive progress has been made, to allow Mr. Brainerd to finish. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The operative word, Mr.
Substantive.
Substantive. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean I'd like to, I plan on, I'm thinking about it, I'd like to. Substantive means a contractor walks in and pulls a permit to do the work. It doesn't
And
mean
the work is in progress.
good intentions expressed don't make it, as they say.
Thank you, Commissioner Olsman.
All right. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. Any other comments or questions from the City Commission?
I just have a couple things I want to point out. Number one, I believe it was Mr. Lee, hi Matt, who used the word testimony. It should be pointed out, this is public comment. There's no testimony under oath in this proceeding. This is a proceeding before the Huntington Woods City Commission. This is not a courtroom, and so nobody here has been sworn, so there was no testimony. But nevertheless, when right now, everything we say, we're talking to the whole city, no matter how many people are on here. So I would hope that people believe they're being forthright. Number two, I think Mr. Brainerd answered the question a few minutes ago when he said he's a builder, and earlier the gentleman who said he was here to or was asking questions or appeared to be speaking on his behalf, I believe it's Jeffrey, I assume it's your son, said that you did not, were never told who you needed to hire or what you needed to hire in terms of contractor. Well, I can tell you from my perspective, if you're a licensed builder or have been a licensed builder, you know exactly what you need to do. You don't need Hank Berry or anyone at Huntington Woods City Hall to tell you what you need to do. You've probably done it 5,000 times in your career. So I personally reject that argument as being frivolous. And lastly, that the statement by the homeowner that this property is uninsured is the city's worst nightmare. Because if it's this bad now, and I'm hopeful that it never becomes anything else, but if you were to have an incendiary source or an electrical thing or any kind of thing that can touch up a fire, if you think the neighbors on this street are upset now, I would be, they would be besieging the doors of City Hall if this house became a fire scenario where there's no insurance and nothing to deal with everything that goes on when that.
I would think they'd have a celebration to get rid of the problem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
you.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner
Mr.
Jenks.
Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to point out that construction reopened in Michigan on May 8th. And at least during this month of June, we've had 4 90-degree days. We've had 10 80-degree days. We've had 6 70-degree days and only 1 in the 60s. So the ability of contractors to work was there. We still had warm weather in May, and actually we had a mild winter. So before the state shut down on March 23rd, there was 2 months available, but the month of March had relatively decent weather. So, I mean, there is no excuse that the weather stopped us from doing something.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
I agree with what my colleague just said, and that the hearing was held January 28th, and there were 2 months before COVID stopped things in Michigan with the stay home, stay safe, so that there were no permits pulled. Nothing took place within those 2 months. It's not like permits have been pulled and work was underway that was subsequently stopped by our state's governor. That's not what happened here. I've reviewed everything in detail, and I do believe that this is a dangerous structure. It's not anything I would let children near. It's possible that they could become injured by the structure. And so I think that there's a number of things that need to take place here. And to further clarify, it's the substantive progress includes work underway, items on the list checked off, not just permits pulled, not just a contractor hired. It actually requires that there be significant progress. And if this commission needs to revisit this item at 60 days, I have no issue placing this on agenda to revisit it and extend its amount of time necessary. But if nothing is done at 60 days, that this structure needs to come down. I'm glad that you're looking to sell this property to a family. I think that that's great. And I wish you the best of luck at that. I'm very disappointed in general with how the lawn has had to be cut by the city and all of these other things and complaints that we have to deal with. I wouldn't want to live near this structure. And so I'm glad that we're taking some action this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Would you identify yourself? I don't remember you being a commissioner. You're who?
I'm Commissioner Joe Rozelle. I was elected
Okay.
in 2017 and re-elected in 2019. Top vote getter in both elections, so most folks in the city know who I am.
Okay. Any other
Mr.
commission
Mayor,
comments?
I don't really have that much more to add. I can't imagine what your neighbors have been through, Mr. Brainerd. My heart really goes out to them. If I had a child living near your property, I would be very concerned. And the reason why I asked about your intentions is that, one, I do want to see progress on this. So I want us to reconvene at 60 days, and I want to see improvements in your plan and action items. And I respectfully ask you to follow through with what you have promised us tonight. On behalf of the neighbors. I mean, this is, since you're familiar with this place, this is a very special community-based neighborhood. And you not only have a responsibility to your neighbors, but the entire community here. And so I do appreciate you showing up and talking with us directly. And I thank you for taking the time out to open this line of communications. I really wanted to hear about your intentions, and I hope we can help you get there.
Thank you. I must admit that I have been neglectful with the property, and that was not my feelings for it or my intentions. Sorry.
And
Thank you.
Mr. Brainerd, if I can add, this is your last chance, okay? So you really need to take the action, as the commission said, within the 60 days. If not, heads up, we are going to proceed with the demolition. So I hope we can all get on the same page here, and we see you in really soon to apply for your building permit.
Okay.
All right, we have a roll call vote for the motion on the floor. Mayor Pro Tem Rozell,
You're muted.
Aye.
Commissioner
Hear me now,
Olsman,
Mr. Mayor. Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Jenks,
Aye.
Commissioner Elder,
Aye.
Mayor Paul, aye. Motion carries. With that, because this is a special meeting of the City Commission, there can be no further action taken. So I will ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So move.
Seconded.
Can you send me a copy of the meeting, please?
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah, after the order is signed, I'll make sure it gets over to you, Mr. Brainerd.
Thank you, Carol.
Right.
You've been really good on providing everything.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 No, roll call. Sorry.
To adjourn the meeting? Okay, Mayor Pro Tem
Yeah.
Rozell,
Aye.
Commissioner Elder,
Aye.
Commissioner Jenks,
Aye.
Commissioner Olsman,
Aye.
Mayor Paul, aye. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.